Here is the Chapter 12 Excel that came with the book. You'll find it in our class in my.usf and downloads. Very similar to the other chapters I've been showing everybody. And what they do here is they give us a really good example of cash flows for a company. And this is the example they use in the book. So when you read the chapter, you'll see this model in there. What's kind of nice is you can just kind of see the Excel formulas behind the scenes that are doing this. So we're talking about a project with a capital expenditure of $900,000, net operating working capital investment of $100,000, and then we're going to start to sell some product here and what those sales would be over a 4-year period. The sales price, the variable cost, the revenues, all those things come into play here to compute what this is. So everybody should be able to see those numbers and how they work out. And then what they do over here too is they're doing straight line depreciation over here, and they're doing over here on this side, they're doing more of the IRS accelerated depreciation. So I'm just kind of showing you 2 examples and how that impacts a few things. They're giving us what the depreciation tables are right down here too. So they're giving us accelerated and straight line down here. So just showing you both numbers. And then based on those cash flows, then they go ahead and they do the various calculations based on both accelerated and straight line cash flows, what the NPV is, what the IRR is, MIRR, and the payback is for both. So just kind of just use the similar concept we've used previously to help you figure that out and look at it. Okay, so that was the first part of the first tab. Then they do a replacement analysis. So remember that when it comes to new projects, we're looking at incremental cash flows. And so if we're just starting something brand new from scratch, everything's incremental. But if we're replacing an old machinery with a new machine, then we have to take into account what is the new free cash flow, above and beyond what was gotten rid of. And that's what this tab shows you, is just kind of that change between the two. So let everybody take a look at that. And then of course what they do is they compute the NPV and IRR and all that good stuff. So we're looking at 2 cash flows. Basically this bottom one is new machine, and the top part is the base case, which is basically cash flows before replacement, old machine, new machine, and then the cash flow differences are what are important. And then they base all the NPV calculations, IRR, all that stuff on this, what's in red right here in row 37. There's a few more tabs in here that you might just want to take a look at. There's a risk analysis then. So what we're doing with this one is doing sensitivity analysis, basically saying I've got the base case, but then what if I make a change to one input? How will that change my answer? And so what you can do, you can kind of just see, we're going to slowly scrolling down here, you see the various calculations, the capital budgeting calculations down here. And you can do a sensitivity graph also, and what they're doing is you're kind of taking the base case, but there's a 25% chance it'll be worse or better than the base case, and they're doing what they kind of talk about in the chapter in the PowerPoint of doing that sensitivity analysis and just kind of going, how will things change based on some input, generally sales is what they're looking at, how will that change? Okay, so just be aware of that. And then abandonment is another option. You could just, of the real options that we talked about in the chapter, one could be just walk away. The project is not turning out the way I want. Can I walk away from it? Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. And knowing that if I can or can't might help you decide if I should take on the project before we decide. In this example, if I can take on the project and abandon it if I need to, how does that come into play as opposed to a project where I can't abandon it? Maybe I've got some contracts and some leases and stuff like that where I just can't walk away. I'm stuck with the payment. But maybe with the so I can abandon versus I can't abandon, just know how those might change your answers. Just be aware of those. Okay, so it's not quite as much number crunching in this chapter as there was for other ones, but the Excel is still good. It still helps you out to do some of the work in Apply. And if you have questions, you can always